Well, we're going to cover a lot of different terms while writing our songs. So I want to go over some of the terminology that we're going to use in the course, but also just some of the standard terminology that songwriters should know. So let's dig into some of that stuff. Well, the first thing you're going to hear in any song is the intro, right? The introduction. No matter what it is, whatever's up front in the song is the intro. So it can be maybe part of another section of the song. It could be a completely different section. It could be just a sound or a certain instrument. It could be a vocal line. Anything. It doesn't really matter. As long as it's up front, right at the beginning, that's the intro. More often than not, the first time you hear vocals in a song, it's the verse. The verse is really where the bulk of the story is told. It doesn't necessarily contain the main message, but it sets up the story and gives you some background so that when that main message comes through, the listener is really prepared to accept it and understand the context. So you often have more than a verse, sometimes 2, 3 verses, sometimes 4 verses in a song. Depending on how much story you have to tell will determine how many verses you're going to write. Now, you're not always going to come across a pre-chorus, but it's a really useful technique if you need some kind of transition to get you out of the verse into the actual chorus. And that's why sometimes it's referred to as a ramp. It's kind of like imagine getting on the highway. You take that ramp to get on the highway. That's what a pre-chorus does. It's a great way to set up your main message for the song that you're writing. The chorus, that's the big part of the song. That's why it's called the chorus. In many cases, that's where you've got your background vocals and the song is going full steam ahead. So this is really where you want to emphasize your main point, your main meaning. Often the title of the song will be there. The chorus is the big part. It usually repeats several times in exactly the same way throughout the song. Now, you heard James Brown say, take it to the bridge. The bridge is a departure from the rest of the song. It's a really good device when you need to change things up a little bit, when you need to get away from the sound of the verse and the chorus, which are the parts of the songs that repeat. The bridge is a great way. It usually only happens once in a song. It presents a slightly different viewpoint, a different feel, and gives the listener a fresh experience within the context of the song. So just like the way the intro, whatever you hear first is the intro, whatever you hear last is the outro. Makes sense, doesn't it? So whenever the song is ending, however it's ending, it could be a fade, it could be a strong ending, it could be a deceptive ending. We'll explore all of those in the course, but the outro is the way the songwriter chooses to exit the song. It's the last thing the listener is going to hear. Well, the title, you know what the title is. It's the name of your song. But it's actually more than that because the listener usually knows the title of the song, especially if they're reading the liner notes or something like that, or they've been told by the band, before they've even heard the song. So the title puts the listener in the frame of mind to accept the song. You got to be careful with your titles. They have to be really meaningful. And they're usually a key part of your chorus. It's the one thing that, if there's only one thing that somebody's going to remember from your chorus, it's usually the title. And so the title needs to be up there front and center and really strong. Now, if you look at copyrights, what you're really copywriting in a song are words and music. And that's what lyrics are. Lyrics are the words. So often poetic, often rhyming, but that's what we call the words that we put to music are lyrics. And lyrics will contain the title and a lot of other, all the story, of course, will be in the lyrics. So that's what we mean when we talk about words and music, music and lyrics. A lot of times you'll hear somebody talk about the hook. What's the hook? The hook is just that. It's the part of the song that hooks you. Often it's the chorus. That's what people leave after they've heard your song, they leave your song singing the chorus, the hook. Maybe it's the title. Usually is, in fact. The title's part of that hook. But there's certain songs I can think of, like a Beatles song like Day Tripper, for example, that's got a very definitive melodic line to set it up, or Stevie Wonder's Superstition. In those cases, the riff, the melodic line is the hook, because that's what we walk away singing. So a lot of times you need to think about the hook being anything that really sticks in the mind of the listener. That's the hook, because we're hooked. Chords are a big part of every song. Technically, what's a chord? 3 notes or more. That's generally how we define a chord. Sometimes even 2 notes will suggest a chord. So that's really what we're talking about with chords. But there are a lot of variations within the chord. For example, the order that we play the notes, we call those chord voicings. And a lot of times we'll want to experiment with different chord voicings in order to better complement the melody of the song, something like that. So chords are really important, not only the number of notes that we put in them, but the order, the voicing, and then also how we might embellish them. We're coloring. You know, we might on guitar put an extra finger down or lift a finger up in order to change and embellish the chord. Well, we talked about chords. What's a chord progression? It's just exactly that. It's how do chords progress from one to another. So we've got one chord, we've got another chord, we've got a third chord. Maybe that makes up our verse or our chorus. The sequence of those chords, that's our chord progression. The melody is the tune of the song. It's often what we'll whistle when we think of a song. And that's what we set our lyrics to. It's the tune in which we sing our words. So that's what the melody is. And as a songwriter, we really want to carefully craft that melody over our chord progression. So you can see how these are all building up into creating our sonic masterpiece as songwriters. The melody is critical, a lot of fun, and really interacts both with the words and the chord progression. If we talk about words and music, where those two meet is the melody. Rhythm and groove. You know, that's the way our song feels. We're going to put in some rhythm underneath that chord progression. We're going to start grooving to it. It's just the way it sounds, rhythm and groove. It's what we use to capture a certain kind of mood and a certain kind of feel. And that'll often be dictated by our story, by our lyric. So rhythm and groove. It's a lot of fun. It's what keeps our feet tapping. Now, you might come across a solo in a song, a solo section. And usually that's, hey, if you got a great guitar player in the band or you happen to be a great guitar player yourself, maybe you want to give yourself an opportunity to shine. A solo section is a really nice way to continue your melody without using a singer or without using lyrics. It's a nice departure, but it still gives a very singable melody. I love a great sax solo in a pop song sometimes. So that's what we do with a solo. And speaking of all of these different aspects, hey, that's what we've got in a song. These are the components that make up the anatomy of a song.